Have you ever wondered when Polygon might peak in this 2025 bullish market? And I'm not talking about price predictions here. I'm talking about specifically which month might the peak actually arrive. So if you're interested in this and you've been thinking about it, you're in luck because I'm going to be taking a look at the charts with this in mind. As I get into this video, smash a like button, subscribe if you're new, and let's get into it. Okay, so in order for us to truly understand where some of these altcoins might be able to find their bull market peaks, we should actually spend some time taking a look at Bitcoin and where Bitcoin has historically found its bull market peak. For some altcoins, they basically correlate directly to where Bitcoin is, and occasionally you find some altcoins that actually have slightly different paths. But understanding Bitcoin's kind of bull market cycles is really important to understanding some altcoins. So this particular chart here is Bitcoin paired up with US dollar. We're on the 1 week Bitstamp data. Okay, now in here I've got several different kind of color codes going on. We have yellow, blue, purple, and orange, right? And it repeats itself. Okay, yellow, blue, purple, orange, yellow, blue, purple, orange, and so forth. Now what these represent, if I zoom in just over here, you have your election year, you have 1 year after the election, 2 years after the election, and 3 years after the election. This is the US election, by the way. Okay, why is it this important? Well, the Bitcoin halving event happens in the election year. You can see it over here in 2012, you can see it over here in 2016, you can see it here in 2020 and 2024. Okay, so lots of people have kind of speculated that the Bitcoin halving is a huge catalyst for, big bull markets, right? However, actually, in reflection to the data, it might just be a coincidence that the market is moving the way that it is based on the Bitcoin halving event, and it might actually have a lot more to do with the US political landscape. Okay, now in here we can see the US election year of 2012, okay, and we can have a bull market peak up 1 year after. The election year of 2016, bull market peak the year after. The election year of 2020, bull market peak the year after. The election year of 2024, bull market peak 2025, right? That's kind of the idea of what's going on here. Now, when we start thinking about Bitcoin and how it has historically moved, here in 2013's bullish market, there was a double peak situation. Essentially, we have a early Q2 bull market peak, a collapse, and then a final Q4 move to the upside. Okay, so bull market peak actually happened here in late November, beginning of December, okay, the year after the US election. That was 2013, right? Then we come over to the next election year, okay, so 2016. Our bull market peak was up here at the beginning of December, so 11th December, we commencing then, this being Q4, a bull market peak, okay, perfect. So as we come over here to our election year of 2020, bull market peak of 2021, what do we see? Well, we see a double peak. We see the initial peak here, and this was again April, so we're talking beginning of Q2, and then a final peak of the bull market up in November 2021. Okay, so again Q4. Okay, so out of the 3 bullish markets for Bitcoin, what do we see? Well, we can see that the bull market peak has always been Q4 of the year after the US election, or the year after the Bitcoin halving event. Although I think in time we're going to see how that changes, because the Bitcoin halving event is not on a 4-year cycle, believe it or not. It actually gets shorter and shorter every time. Okay, so basically 1 year after the election, Q4 is a Bitcoin bull market peak. However, there's one other thing that we can note from this data. We see an alternating potential here. Okay, so we have a double peak here in 2013, single peak in 2017, double peak in 2021. So the expectation should be single peak in 2025, and then a double peak potentially later down the line, and so forth. Okay, so in terms of us trying to predict where altcoins are going to find their bull run kind of peak, it's important to understand where Bitcoin has historically always seen its bull market peaks, which has always been Q4 of 2024. sorry, well, Q4 of the year after the election, I should say. Okay, guys, so now that we've spoken about Bitcoin and we know what Bitcoin has done historically, let's take a look at Polygon's chart. This is Polygon paired up with US dollar, and it's on the 1-day Bitstamp chart, right? Now, I'm using this chart because it doesn't kind of take into, or it doesn't actually care whether it's POL or MATIC. This still gives me all of the history, which is great to see. So on this chart, we can see that we have data from 2021. We don't really have a lot before that, and we obviously can see everything that's happened afterwards. Now, there are people out there that are going to tell you that Polygon is dead and yada, yada, yada. This is a narrative that's spinning out there in the same way that you saw it with Cardano not that long ago. I don't believe in that narrative. There's fundamental stuff happening, and it is the go-to layer 2 solution for Ethereum, despite what some of the competition might be trying to say about it. And again, I look at that as in who is paying for the FUD at the end of the day. Now, with all that in mind, understanding that it is a layer 2 scaling solution, it is going to be based on the performance of Ethereum. We haven't seen Ethereum do very well just yet, but if Ethereum does start to gain some traction with its ETF and so forth, we are going to see Polygon to do relatively well as well, specifically as the go-to layer 2 solution. So let's talk about what happened in the previous bullish market, because we did see over 45,000% in gains in the previous bull run, driven mainly from obviously developers and retail investors using Polygon's network rather than relying on Ethereum. Now, obviously here we can see that MATIC here, or Polygon, a POL token as it's known now, did actually have a bullish peak up here at $2.98. This happened in December of 2021. This means that it follows Bitcoin relatively acutely in the same way that you would expect, because Ethereum and Bitcoin are relatively tied together to a degree, meaning that they are pretty much in tandem moving together. So Bitcoin goes up into new all-time high, you kind of expect Ethereum to do the same. Now, the exceptions right now is that we've had a lot more institutional money through the ETFs going into Bitcoin, and well, Ethereum hasn't really had that just yet. And of course, there's some other dynamics such as supply and yada, yada, yada to kind of consider. But for the most part, for Polygon here, we can see that it has been a Q4 finish historically. And so the question becomes, are we going to be doing something relatively similar? Now here you can see a big move to the downside, kind of finishing off as we would have expected in that previous bullish market. Nothing terribly too unusual about this. And this is something that we were kind of talking about for quite a bit of time. I'm going to obviously ignore the wick there because low liquidity creates that kind of stuff. But for the most part, we in the kind of the previous bearish market of 2022, we were predicting some pretty bearish times for POL, and well, it's kind of fitting that quite nicely. It's a very corrective pattern, and it has played out quite nicely here. And well, we can see that it finished off really, really good down here at the bottom. So when we start thinking about where we think this is going to go, it's going to go from that low of around 28.5 cents to some pretty decent numbers in my opinion. Now, unfortunately, on this chart, there isn't a huge amount of historical precedent. We did know that we had a 45% run to the upside, and the expectation would be that we would do something very similar. So I'm going to go ahead and get an approximate number. I think it was around 1.5 cents that we had this low point. So I'm going to go ahead and snap this on just so we can see the level of this, because I remember that we were buying into this very, very early, around the kind of 1.5 cents. Maybe it was even less than that. It would have been around about here. So it's, yeah, half a cent is kind of where it came from, right? So if we kind of take that into consideration, that this is the move that it had already, well, this isn't obviously a price prediction video, but you can see that this is kind of where the kind of levels are likely to kind of go to in the future. And this gives us some really good bullish targets. Now, I'm not expecting us to see, exponential growth massively towards $100 or so, but I do think that there is a high probability of hitting $12 or more. Okay, so that might seem crazy to some, but I do think that that is a possibility that we need to kind of consider. And in terms of trying to time this, well, I would be looking and I would be thinking about Polygon's MATIC here, or POL token as it's now known, reaching some of these very ambitious targets, breaking out into new all-time highs and kind of finishing off maybe even around that kind of $12 level by December of 2025. Now, obviously, this is a speculative to a degree. It's only going to be around 4,000% in gains. It's not going to be that massive. And of course, there's nothing in the crypto space that is guaranteed. But I do see new all-time highs as a potential here for Polygon's MATIC, but it is going to be on the back of Ethereum's performance. Ethereum needs to perform well. We need to see an increase in gas fees, which will drive more people towards the layer 2 solutions. And we also have to consider there's a lot more competition this time around as well. You've got Arbitrum, you've got Optimism, you've got a whole host of other layer 2s, including Unichain, which is going to take a slice of Ethereum's pie, but also that of MATIC or Polygon. So although Polygon has the potential, I am also quite aware that it's going to have a bit of a challenge to try to get these prices a little bit higher. The other way, I still see, a December Q4 kind of finish when it comes to Polygon and MATIC or POL token as it is known today. What do you think? Do you think we're going to be looking for a Q4 finish, or do you think that this is one you're going to avoid? Let me know in the comments down below, but a word of warning, we are full of scammers down there. As quickly as I ban them, 100 more bots come on in. Now, feel free to go ahead and spam the spamming bots down there, waste their time. I'm all for that. But if you want to have a meaningful conversation with us, join us in our free Discord server. It's linked in the description down below. If you smash that like button, guys, it will tell the YouTube algorithm to push the video even further. The more likes, the further this video will go, and the more eyeballs there will be on Polygon's MATIC or POL token as it is known today. Subscribe if you want to stay up to date, and of course, check out my price prediction video. It's right here. It's one you're probably not going to want to miss.